Hi again, everyone. Brian Rhodes here again. Hey, I hope all is right with all of you out there today. Well, in my last blog, I mentioned that I was working through the screenplay scene for scene with my director, and it's going swimmingly. But I have a challenge for you today. We're trying to, Tabit and I are figuring out things that maybe are less obvious about the film, less expositional, shall we say, and more just in the background thinking. I'll give you an example. I have a scene in the film which actually kicks off into the second part of the film. And it's a scene where Charlie's sitting and watching a father and son playing baseball or playing catch in the park. You know, that's something that I would have been doing with my father, and in my generation back then, that's something most guys did with their dads, played ball or played hockey or played catch or shot the puck around in the driveway, something like that. But I'm not sure for millennials right now that that's something that a lot of millennials do, especially in the major urban areas, etc. I'm sure there's some of it, but not iconic. And even if it isn't so iconic, or if shall I say, or isn't so frequent, it's a better word, it's certainly not subtle enough a suggestion as to, you know, Charlie sitting there being envious because he never got a chance to play ball with his son. So after a long talk, you know, we didn't want to be so obvious, so we've changed that scene. We eliminated the father and son playing ball, and all we did was create a backdrop. We're still in the park, but in the backdrop, in this case, there is a playground, and the playground is empty. And it's just a backdrop, and we see that image, Charlie superimposed against the backdrop with a sad look on his face, and we're looking for the audience to pick up on that. I think it's an excellent move, and there are other parts in the screenplay where I've used the park as a backdrop that I'm going to change, okay? But there's other areas in this screenplay that we need to address. So I have a question for you. Give it some thought, maybe ask your friends or other people as well, because this is a bit of a dilemma. So and I'll set the tone for you here. So you're in a bar, you're having a drink with a couple of your friends, and you start talking about, let's say, something you are tremendously interested in. It might be music, it might be bird watching, it might be sports, it might be something. And then there is an older fellow, much older fellow than you, or much older woman for you girls out there, women out there, who happens to overhear you, and you soon discover that that person is very well known in that world that you're just discussing. In the case of music, he's a known singer-songwriter. In the case of bird watching, he's an author of many works. You know, in the case of sports, he's maybe a retired or ex-sports celebrity. The point is that you end up with this common denominator, which to some degree washes away a big age difference, because you're in your 20s, this person is in his or her 60s, maybe even early 70s. But you've built up this dialogue. But as we know, you know, there are some circumstances in life where you can be weirded out, right? So now in the case of this film, you've got a young man who's interested in music, and Charlie is an ex-rock star, and they've talked about this. So the young person, Boston in this case, you in this challenge I'm looking to have you embark upon, you want to know as much about this guy, as learn things from this guy, get help from this guy or this woman, depending upon your circumstances. And so you want to spend time with him. Here's the question. Where other than this bar would you be comfortable going to talk to this person? And if that person suggested one of those spots, Where would you, if that person suggested it, the older character suggested it, where would you most feel comfortable going? Just so that you're not weirded out, just so that it doesn't look stupid, but you're going to be trying to pick the brains of this person who you're becoming very friendly with. And therefore, having spots that you want, that you feel comfortable going to, not necessarily in public. Questions, for example, you would ask, would you go to his place? Would you take him to your place? Would you go to a bar? Bar's obvious. Probably we've got to think of something more better than that. Would you go to a coffee shop? Again, obvious. Would you go to a tennis match? Would you go for a walk? Would you go to a museum? Where do millennials, or would millennials go and feel comfortable creating this fascinating dialogue between you and someone who is an expert in it? Again, the idea here is a place where you're comfortable and it doesn't look weird, a place where you're comfortable and you're not weirded out, nor are they weirded out. In other words, would you get drunk with this person? Would you smoke up with this person? I mean, those are the things I'd kind of like to hear what you have to say about. Because what we've got here in this screenplay, we've got to sell the idea that this kid is so enormously interested in what this older guy has to say that we've got to be able to look at this and say, well, if he goes back to his place, we can't have people saying, oh, he'd never do that, he'd never do that. So that's what we're trying to get around here. So if you were that interested in some knowledge from somebody who's 3 or 4 years older than you, where would you go to discuss that? How would you go about, what locations would you entertain? In my day, would have been maybe a pool hall. In my day, it might have been a park. In my day, it could have been at a bar. In my day, it could be, going fishing together. In my day, it could be going hiking. But those are not things that, at least I don't think, that millennials would do, places where they would feel comfortable taking this person or going with this person to be able to get this wealth of information or learn this wealth of information. That's a challenge. So I want to know where you millennials would go, where you millennials would take this person. Or if that person suggested, the older person suggested, where would you not go? If you can give me feedback on that, I'd appreciate it. We have our own ideas, but I thought maybe I'd challenge you and get you involved in this as well and see what you come up with. Hey, you might come up with a perfect location that, in fact, would be, for millennials, pretty common. Anyway, that's the challenge. Get back to me. So until the next time, you take care. Bye-bye now.